Hello, everyone. My name is Gerardo Torres Zelaya. I am the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Honduran government. I'm also the International Secretary of the LIBRE Party and the General Director of our Political Education Institute. It's a pleasure to be here in this event. Thank you, Rick, and also Karen for the invitation of the Task Force on the Americas. I was with you in some meetings about 10, 11 years ago. We appreciate very much all the support you have given in all these years for the Honduran resistance. As you know, we went to the United States as spokespersons in 2009, 10, 11, 12 to talk about and let the people of the United States and the whole world know what had happened in our country with the coup d'etat of 2009 against President Manuel Zelaya. What happened in Honduras, just to make a very short summary, was that we have been historically one of the most controlled and military occupied countries in Latin America by the United States. Honduras was used as a platform to fight against the revolutions in Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Cuba, and it was also used as the headquarters and the main office of the Southern Command, or the SOUTHCOM, that is still based its headquarters in Honduras, just about 80 kilometers from Tegucigalpa, that is our capital city. So this country that has had always a very strong tradition of economic and military control of the United States decided, because the people decided in 2007 and 2008, to starting to create new relationships with South America that was living this important process of a leftist movement of socialism, of a different way to understand international trade, international relationships. We had the presence of Lula da Silva in Brazil, Nestor Kirchner in Argentina, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, Evo Morales in Bolivia. And these countries and these leaders were against what the United States was promoting at that moment. That was a big free trade area that would allow United States companies and merchandise to flood our countries and to reduce us only to a very cheap workforce with very low interest in developing investment and economic growth for the development of our countries. We would have become, if that would have succeeded, and this was during the government of President Bush, it was called ALCA, the Free Trade Area of the Americas. We would be transformed into countries where the United States and other international interests or companies or countries would have access to a lot of natural resources, a very cheap working force, and a lot of possibilities to compete against other economic threats like China or Russia or other things. But it wouldn't be such a good deal for Latin America to just being seen as a place to take away national resources or to put people to work with very low salaries. So we face against that. We are profoundly against neoliberalism. We don't believe that privatizing health education is a way to bring development for the countries. We believe that health education, the access of a good job, the access of housing, the access of the respect for our national resources, and to live in a place that is not polluted, that our rivers are not polluted, human rights. And in that sense, we believe that our governments have the obligation to protect and to guarantee them. So Honduras got into that wave that we call this leftist socialist wave of the beginning of this of the 2000s. And because of that, our economic class and our military and our, I say, the powers, the real powers of my country, with the support and with the knowledge that the United States Embassy planned a coup d'etat against President Manuel Zelaya Rosales, took him out of power, and put a government that was controlled by the military forces, but also by drug trafficking cartels. The people that were responsible for that action preferred a drug trafficking, violent, militarized, human rights violator regime instead of a socialist government. And they made the decision for the Honduran people, and they forced that decision against our will. So we went to the streets and we created something that is called the National Resistance Front, that got together people that came from the Liberal Party, people as myself that come from left socialist political organizations, people that came by the T-shirts movement, the campesino peasant movement, the workers, the unions, organized women, feminists. We all got together in this big National Resistance Front. And 2 years later, we created a political party that's called Liberty and Refounding or Refoundation, because we believe that Honduras needs a new start, a founding of our state with or through the creation of new principles, of new objectives, of a new philosophy that has to do more with solidarity than with competition, that has to do with the growth and the development of the communities instead of the big markets and the big interests of the big transnational companies that only see wealth as a way of taking away as much as they can instead of a more balanced with nature and with other humans a way of growth and development. So we are a socialist party. We organized ourselves in 2011. We participated for the first time in an election in 2013. We won that election, but through fraud and violence, they stopped us to get into power. And we created an alliance in 2017 with political forces of the center and even some of the from the right. And we won again, now by a bigger margin, around 7-8 points, and they stole it again. And unfortunately, they did these violent actions, these fraudulent actions, with the knowledge and kind of the support of the United States. There was a change in government. We had 8 years of Obama, 4 years of Trump, and in those 12 years, we had a regime in Honduras. Then, as a consequence of that regime, this country just broke down. We were the head of a drug trafficking organization in all Central America. Our president was the leader of that cartel. We got to a range of poverty of 75%. 3 of every 4 people in Honduras live in poverty. That's a very reasonable way to understand the migrant caravans that are mainly made by Honduras. There's no possibilities in the country to find a development for you and for the people and for your family. So people started going to the United States by thousands. So those migrant caravans, I believe, had to do a lot in the change of policy of the United States towards our government and our international politics. The United States understood that by forcing this violent and criminal regime, they were only making the problem bigger, and that problem was affecting in their south border in the United States. Because if you don't have a way of life and you live in a very violent environment, then you leave. It's a human conclusion that is very intelligent. It's very simple. If there's no way for me and my family to live here, then I will look for another place to live. There were also pressure from the DEA. They had to stop the cartel in Honduras. And what they did was just to step aside, give a step back, stop trying to protect this regime or this government, and allow that the people in Honduras decided what we wanted. And what we wanted was the first women president, President Xiomara Castro, the first time a woman is president of my country. the first time a non-traditional party. We in Honduras, also as you in the United States, we have a bipartisan system that historically has been only for two parties. This is the first time a party that is not part of this bipartisan system gets into power. This is the first time a leftist socialist party in my country gets into power. And this is also the first time that a country that has not have all the support, or is not under the control or political umbrella of the United States gets into power. And we won 51% against 30. We defeated the regime by 21 points. This was the biggest election ever in Honduras. Everyone went to vote. We broke down, we tore down a dictatorship without using violence, without using weapons, just using grassroots organizations, just using our own resources. And we defeated a very rich, multimillionaire, violent, and highly weaponized regime. And now we're in government. And we're in government for this year. We started our government in January 2022. We're about to be in our first year of government. One of the things we have done, we can summarize it in three main things. First is what President Xiomara Castro calls breaking down the dictatorship. She means breaking down all those laws that were created in this last 12 years that have to do with militarization of society, prosecution and persecution of the protests. In this year, there has been no use of tear gas bombs, for example, or other use of torture that in this country was very common to see in repressions. In the understanding of the police and the military was the use of highly violence against protesters, and seeing protesters as an enemy of the state and as the country. We feel that people have the liberty and the right to protest and to demand more from the government. We also took down what they called the secret law, that was, or the secrecy law, that allowed them to use the budget and to do whatever they want without me or any citizen to know what the government was doing. We believe in an open door government in which people can demand us accountability and can do follow-up on what we're doing. So that is the first thing that President Castro is calling breaking down the dictatorship, is breaking down that totalitarian violent regime that was this narco dictatorship that we had in Honduras. President Xiomara Castro, that's one thing. The other thing is that she believes that it's impossible to reduce migration and reduce poverty without economic growth. In my case, as Vice Minister and also the Minister and Chancellor Reina, we have like the order from President Xiomara Castro to open new markets, to open new relationships, to strengthen the relationships we have, for example, with the United States and Europe, but we also put our also objective in Latin America, and to strengthen the relationships and to find other ways to bring development to the communities. And the third has to do with human rights. We come from a social movement that has been strongly affected in our human rights, that has been prosecuted, assassinated, tortured, and forced to exile. She decided to create an amnesty that has allowed people that were criminalized or were in jail to be free, and also people that were in exile come back to the country, find a job, clean their police record, be sure that there will be no persecution against them. So she believes strongly in a state and a government that guarantees the basic rights, but also believes in a government and a state that is always trying to bring more rights for the people. It's to guarantee the rights that, like our Constitution give us right now, but are also to expand those rights and to reduce that inequality towards the action of government that guarantees some things that were considered as a profit or as a good that could only be acquired by money, now be seen and understood as human rights. For example, in the case of electricity, she decided the electricity in Honduras is a human right. So the government is obligated to guarantee that human right, because when something is a good or is profit, then only the people that can buy it as health or education can access to it. But when it's a human right, then it's a responsibility of the government to guarantee that. And as education and health are human rights, and water and housing and access to a good job, to a good possibility to have economic growth or development, also electricity is now. And we're walking towards access to internet, access to technology, access to culture, access to arts, access to a safe environment. Honduras is still a very violent country. We're putting a lot of efforts in trying to create a better police that is not a political police, that is not that has not has as main objective to follow up and to stop the political opposition, but instead to create with the communities more safe and better communities altogether. And our military forces that have had a very shameful history of being behind coup d'etats and being behind torture and being behind disappearing people and killing people, starting to change gradually, but constantly, their philosophy and not understand them as enemies of the people that want a better Honduras, but as a part of that relationship in the community. President Xiomara Castro has declared the military forces as the responsibles to defend the national resources. She believes that defending the sovereignty of Honduras is not allowing a private company just because it has a lot of money to destroy a river, to destroy a valley, to destroy a mountain. The military forces have to guarantee the sovereignty of the people and sovereignty of the country through the protection of national resources, and to understanding that national resources and climate change brings vulnerability, but also has to move us as communities to find collective solutions. So that are the things that we are doing in this government. This is the things, this is, we believe, the beginning of the refounding process of Honduras. We are under the orders of a very brave, intelligent, and human and very kind woman that is President Xiomara Castro, that has a strong sensibility, but has the strength to face these problems. We have internal and external enemies, and we're trying to face them as the best as we can. And we appreciate your support, and we appreciate your interest in this government. Because of the nature of our government, there's a lot of lies being said about what's going on in Honduras. We defeated the media, the military, the business that were supporting a regime that supported a coup d'etat. It's not rare or strange that that same media, business, military now attack us and are trying to say a lot of things that are not really happening. We invite you to learn what we're trying to do here, to be part of this process. This is a leftist socialist party that is trying to create a revolution for Honduras, a Honduran revolution. We're not trying to import or to copy other process. We come from a social movement. We come from a very variety and heterogeneous movement. So we try to believe in to promote tolerance and solidarity as our main objective. So Task Force on the Americas, we invite you, I invite you to continue that support that you have done when we were part of the resistance. Now that we are in government, we're still in the resistance. We're trying to transform a society that historically has been unfair, that has been violent, and have excluded the majority of the people. We're trying to create something that is for everyone, for men and women as equals, and to bring a new future for this country. And we know that with friends like you, it will be much easier to achieve. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's been a pleasure, and I'm at your service, and I'll try to be maybe next year or very soon with you in person. Thank you very much.